I gotta be up early tomorrow morning, so I didn't really have time to record and edit a Promised Neverland reaction. So instead, I thought I'd do something that I used to do before my channel blew up. And while I was at work, I was just kind of like, going over all the different topics of thinking what I wanted to talk about when I did get home, because I knew I wasn't gonna have time to film another reaction video. And I thought, you know what, whatever, I'll talk about video games. I like video games, so why not? And yeah, just see if I can make that into a video somehow. I think it all kind of starts with the Nintendo 64, which is the console I grew up with. It's me and my sister, by the way, and I know she'll deny this, but we always grew up. We played we grew up playing video games. We played Donkey Kong 64, Super Mario 64. I have so many good memories of those games. Then that went from the Nintendo 64 to the PlayStation 2, and so I found this old book of all of our old PlayStation games, and I've kept this around. These are all the games that we grew up playing, and it's so crazy. I was just sitting here looking through them before I started this video. I kept this book back whenever we were growing up. This has all of our old PlayStation 2 games on here, and a couple like GameCube games, whatever, that I added later on. Rocket Power, Splashdown, the little like jet ski racing game. That was the best. I loved that game so much. These are the games that we were allowed to play. We weren't allowed to play any, which I, at the time, I hated that. The fact that everyone else I knew, they all get to play the new latest Ghost Recon and Call of Duty, and I was playing Shrek 2, and I am glad. I'm glad they were tougher on restricting the video games until they knew that we were mature enough to play games like that. I'm happy for that, because I mean, you get on like GTA and stuff today, and it's 90% 8-year-olds. Our favorite games though growing up, yeah, there it is. This game right here, ATV Off-Road Fury 2. Not for resale. Is that normally printed on games like that? Weird. That game and Return of the King. My sister was always she's a huge Lord of the Rings fan. I'm okay with them. I like the movies, but they were never like I was never obsessed with them like my sister was obsessed. We'd play that game. She'd always play as Legolas, not to play as Aragorn. Nice little trip down memory lane. You guys got to experience with me. Since I wasn't allowed to play any like shooting games or anything like that, I got Cabela's. I don't know if you guys ever heard of these games, but the Cabela's games, the hunting. Those are the only kind of games with a gun that my parents would ever let me play. And yeah, no, I didn't like the Cabela's games where you were like, where it was like arcade style, or the ones that were like really dramatic, and you would be like hunting the lion down in the savannah, like tracking down all the people and animals that it killed. No, I like the ones where you would sit in a deer stand for 30 minutes with nothing, and then you'd finally see a deer, so you'd pull out your gun and you'd wait for it, hitting your antlers together rapidly, trying to get it to come closer. By the time it gets closer, you put your crosshair on it and stuff, and then you shoot, but your gun I forgot to sight my gun before I went out, so I just end up missing, and then the deer runs away, and I wasted 40 minutes, and then the amount of stuff that I broke, and then I'd get grounded, and then not be able to play for a week. Yeah, good times. I remember it being so fun. Looking back now, I guarantee you it's the most boring, pointless game ever. I just like to mess around with the guns, and you would check out new guns and put different scopes and attachments on it. That was the coolest part for me. And then you'd go out and like lure the deer to you. It made you feel like it was actually hunting. But yeah, so those are my two games I played, was Cabela's Outdoor Adventures, and I was always a huge Godzilla fan, so I played a game called Godzilla Save the Earth. I don't ever know what happened to it. I know I played it so much that the game was just completely wrecked. The amount of toothpaste and stuff I smeared on it to try and get it to work again. So yeah, that's sad. I'll never get to play that game again. Probably. One day I'll get it again. And then eventually my cousin came down one summer. I think it was in like 2009, 2010. He lived a long ways away. He came down to visit for the summer. He brought with him a game called Halo 3. I remember that summer was one of the greatest summers of my life. We would literally play the Halo 3 campaign and beat it every day. We collected all the skulls. We beat it on Legendary. It was I have so many great memories of that game. Let's see, other game series I like a lot of BioWare games. Mass Effect, I've always liked the Mass Effect trilogy, even Mass Effect 3. Two of my favorite game franchises though are Dragon Age and Knights of the Old Republic. Those games are insane. The first time I played Knights of the Republic, I remember playing it and I'm like, yeah, it's okay. I like it enough. I was playing through it and I'm like, it's just, it hasn't aged too well. That's what I was thinking as I was playing through it. And then once you meet Darth Malik, and there's a huge twist in this game that I should have seen coming because all the signs were there, but it just went completely over my head. And when the twist came, and if you played the game, you know what twist it is. I won't spoil it just for the sake of, if anyone has not played that game in its almost 20 years that game's been out. It came out in like 2003. It's been out for like 17 years now. In the 17 years this game has been out, if you have not played Knights of the Republic, I won't spoil that twist for you, but the twist was huge. That immediately took the game from like a 6 or 7 to a 10 instantly. And that whole last act of that game, like the last part where you craft crash on the planet and go back up. Oh, man, it was so good. I love that game so much. Yeah, and then the other game, of course, which is still by BioWare, is Dragon Age. Dragon Age Origins is also a contender for one of my favorite games of all time. Graphics-wise, texture-wise, it leaves a lot to be desired, that's for certain, but character models look good, but it's the real thing that wins this over for me is the story. The story's so good, man. I love the fact, just the opening, there are 3 different races you can play as: elf, human, and dwarf. Oh, and then you can play as a mage. And each one has its own like prologue that you can play through, and depending on what character you play as, it kind of influences the game. It's super cool. I really like that. I got really salty because somebody said that I saw a YouTuber one time that said Dragon Age Origins was just a ripoff of Elder Scrolls Oblivion. I've never been a huge Elder Scrolls fan in general. Nothing against Skyrim. I understand Skyrim's a great game, but I don't know. I can never really get into Skyrim for whatever reason. And I tried to play Oblivion, and I hate it. I don't know why. I didn't like it. And I think I just got salty whenever somebody said that Dragon Age Origins was just a cheap knockoff of Oblivion. Really? Come on. Anyways, I'll move past that. And the other game, of course, I've said it before, I'm a huge Metroid fan. I think the 2 best ones, though, obviously, and I know it's cliche, whenever somebody brings up Metroid, it's always Super Metroid or Metroid Prime. But I mean, they are the 2 best games. They're so drastically different, too. Super Metroid's the best 2D Metroid game, and Metroid Prime's the best 3D Metroid game. I don't think I could pick one over the other, because they're just 2 completely different games. Metroid 2 is like my biggest like guilty pleasure game. I don't know, I've always had a soft spot for that game for some reason. I definitely see the flaws in it, just like Dragon Age. Oh, speaking of Dragon Age, well, I've already passed it, so whatever, I'll go back to it. Dragon Age 2 is a guilty pleasure game for me. It's bad, but I still like it. Dragon Age Inquisition has a 10 out of 10 opening when you're in like, what's that, in Haven, but then after that's destroyed and you leave that spot, I think the game kind of goes downhill. It just gets really repetitive. It has its moments, but yeah, I wasn't a huge fan of Dragon Age Inquisition, but I have had the urge to go back and replay it. So maybe one day, maybe on this channel, I'll go back and replay Inquisition. But anyways, back to Metroid. I had to say that while I was thinking of it because I went right past it. Metroid 2 has always been a guilty pleasure game for me. I see its faults, but I still like it. But the best like portable Metroid game for me has always been Zero Mission. Zero Mission's a great game. It's just a remake of the original Metroid, but with Super Metroid kind of vibes to it. It has a really amazing ending that just completely threw me off, and it turned Metroid to like a puzzle shooter game into a full-on horror game, and it was so cool. If any complaints I have with it is that it was way too short. I think I beat it in my first playthrough. I beat it in like just over 2 hours or something like that, 2.5 hours. I beat the original Metroid, which Zero Mission's a remake of the original Metroid. It took me longer to beat the original Metroid than it did to beat Metroid Zero Mission, and Metroid Zero Mission is supposed to be a remake that added more stuff to the original, so it's kind of weird. But that'd be my only major complaint with Zero Mission, is just that it was way too short. I think those have been the main series for me. Obviously, there's so many other games I've been playing. I just discovered the Final Fantasy series. I've never played any Final Fantasy games. I got an SNES Classic and I started playing Final Fantasy 3 on it. I'm like, hey, this game's really good. I want to play the other 2. So I bought an NES Classic and started playing the original Final Fantasy. Got about halfway through the game and was like, wow, this game's too hard. I can't play it. I did a little research because you had Final Fantasy 3, where's Final Fantasy 2? Did a little research, and the Final Fantasy games are just a big mess. It's like, yeah, Final Fantasy 1, right? Then Final Fantasy 2 came out in Japan. Didn't come out in America. Final Fantasy 3 came out in Japan. Didn't come out in America. Final Fantasy 4 came out in Japan. Then it came out in America as Final Fantasy 2. Final Fantasy 5 came out in Japan. Didn't come out in America. Final Fantasy 6 came out in Japan, and then came out as America as Final Fantasy 3. So the first Final Fantasy game I played, Final Fantasy 3, was actually Final Fantasy 6. There's like 3 missing Final Fantasy games that I haven't played yet. So, well, technically 4, because I haven't played the original Final Fantasy 2 either. The American Final Fantasy 2. Whatever, it's just a jumbled mess. I bought this recently, which is what I'm playing right now, and it's the original Final Fantasy plus the Japanese Final Fantasy 2, which is really cool. Now it's on the floor. It's a lot easier playing on PlayStation than it is the NES. But yeah, those are pretty much the... of course, there's plenty of other video games to talk about. Those are the major ones, though. I don't know if this made any sense or if it was even a video that was worth watching, but yeah, it is what it is. Attack on Titan will be back out on Monday, and Promised Neverland will be back out on Tuesday. Attack on Titan Monday, Promised Neverland Tuesday. That being said, thank you guys so much for watching. Leave a like if you guys enjoyed the video. Subscribe if y'all would want to see more. More videos coming out for you guys soon. Until then, I'll talk to y'all later. Peace out. Oh, and let me know if there's any of these games I just listed that you guys would like to see me play, maybe on this channel. I don't know. I'll figure some out. That being said, peace out, and thanks.